So the consensus is, and I know Travis is well, this is your position. You're saying there's a role for development for the SSFL, but my devil's advocate question,
role.
my devil's advocate position is this: is if the Pro League and the Youth Pro League and money were not structurally at a disadvantage. In other words, if that element of the pyramid was taken at 100%, would there still be a role for the SSFL at the same level, or are we only referring to the SSFL because we don't have the parallel, better structure at the Youth Pro League and in the Pro League?
Well, yes and no. 90% of the players that play in these clubs, academies, let me go further, 99.9% attend primary school or secondary school. They pass through the school system. So you can't get away from that, right? Cornell just alluded to the reality that, and I am part of it because I coach at Trendsetter Hawks, which is one of the premium academies in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have lent Sarwan Jablote youth teams to participate in the Youth Pro League. Now, Sarwan Jablote is a club who was once sponsored by CL Financial. 4 million TT a year for about 8 years running.
A lot of money.
Right? And they didn't see it fit to properly invest in a proper youth system. No, and to tell you they are one of the better ones. Right? You have teams like Defense Force, no youth system. Police, no youth system. AC Port of Spain, no youth system, and I can go on and on. They have to borrow players. We were actually in talks with AC Port of Spain before the pandemic hit to lend them our under 18 team, right, to play in the Youth Pro League. So you can never try to develop players at the club level in the present climate. But as you alluded to, if they were up to scratch, I still see the secondary school football as playing a critical role because the crowds that come out to look at secondary school, as it has dwindled over the years, but you have a natural fan base. You have the ex-pupils, you have the teachers, you have the students, you have the family of the students, you have people living in the area, right? So for instance, a Malik that is situated in Mova.
But why is that important? Why is that important? If I go to watch, all the parallel structures at elite clubs in South America, Central America, Mexico, they don't have 50,000 people, 10,000 people coming to watch. A U20 match might have family and friends. The same thing in the other divisions. In fact, the security don't let anybody else in. The quality of football is still good. Why do you need 10,000 people to be watching a 16-year-old for it to be a viable enterprise?
Well, one of the things that fans do is hold you accountable. You play badly in front of 5,000 people. That is 5,000 people who remember that bad performance. You play badly in front of 50 people like in the Pro League, Senior Pro League, right? They forget that in no time.
But here's the counter.
You cannot discredit the fans as a stakeholder. Look at the ESL, this European Super League. The fans were some of the most boisterous people who kicked up against it. So you can't rule out the fans as a serious stakeholder in any kind of football.
I think it's also part of the player development to be able to play in front of crowds.
Exactly.
We are trying to develop professional players, and if you start playing in front of big crowds at a young age, that could be only good for your development. when you have to travel with a national team and you go to these countries where, like you say, 10, 20,000 people and they pelting bottle at you and missiles coming from all directions, how would you be able to cope?
That's a
And
fair
coaching,
point.
Cornell.
Huh?
Don't forget coaching. Sometimes,
Yeah,
if you're a coach like Terry Fenwick, who want to shout instructions every minute.
exactly.
Sometimes you're in a stadium, the player at the sideline can't hear you properly because of the noise.
That's what I'm saying. And back in my time, we had rhythm section, left, right, and center, stadium full, field full. So we get used to being playing under pressure because there's pressure to play against the fans. Sometimes we have to travel down St. Benedict's. We have 5,000-6,000 people. When you win the game, your bus being stoned. All these atmosphere you're being thrown in at a young player. That could only help with your development and toughening up the players as well. So it's not just about developing the player on the pitch. The atmosphere as well counts.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, there's definitely the adrenaline factor, but what about the issue of players that don't want to get beats, players that don't want to make mistakes because they know that they might get pound. They are
No,
afraid
you have
to
to make
express
mistake.
themselves.
You have to make mistake. It's part of the developing.
So Cornell, yeah, and this is where I will interject, and this is where the main development part comes in. If we are just breeding the competition and not the development part where you train them, and let them know mistakes are part of the game. The mistakes will come at the highest level. Messi and the Ronaldos and everybody makes mistakes. But it's how fast you transition from making that mistake into going back to winning back the ball or doing whatever. So the mistakes will happen. And within everything we are skipping one level of development in a way, but we have to restructure it where everything can come into play together.
So
I just think we just need to revamp the whole footballing culture. I think we need to do a complete overhaul. What we're doing today is not working.
So that's exactly where I'm going at. So let's get to the point now
working.
of the concrete recommendation. So let's go. We might have to do 2 rounds. So Cornell, first recommendation to change this entire process or improve.
I think one is as I mentioned earlier, is to have a body that is in charge of both primary school all the way up to secondary school football. I think, as Travis said earlier, you need to take the league itself out of the control of the schools and the principals and put it into a hand of football and bodies and stop electing these dinosaurs with no creative initiative to improve the football. These people.
Would you agree that with having it under the Ministry of Sport, or you even think that that's not enough?
I think no. I think you need a separate body from the Ministry of Sport, maybe controlled and overlooked, not controlled, but overlooked by the Ministry of Sport. Just to make sure there is no mismanagement and stuff like that. And but run by a separate body, kind of independent body.
And what should be the profile of the people who work for that entity? What kind of backgrounds are we talking? We talking administrators with what?
I think this is where somewhat of a board will have to come into play, because you need everybody with different experiences to make this thing work. So you'd have to have the business people involved with that will take care of the business side to make it self-sufficient. You need the footballing minds there, the younger footballing minds, the Cornells, the Kenwins, the other people to now bring the different ideas from different parts of the world that they played. So it has to be holistic in terms of everybody coming around a table to bring it together. I don't think it's just one person that we need. I think it's is everybody, and then we will probably try to head in the right direction.
Travis?
Short term, what we call small T's. First thing for me, players over 18 should not be allowed to play in the league. They should be trained with
should be under 16.
16.
I forget to mention it should be under 16 and under.
Yes.
So you're saying to cap the competition at 16?
But
I think so.
With that,
I would say 18.
You also have to have.
I would say 16 because I think
league. You would need some kind of reserve league to transition into the pro league.
Exactly.
But the reserve league. Well, I see your point. So you're saying to have a bridge between.
Yeah, you need a bridge because we don't have a bridge right now.
Correct.
And the players coming out of school football right now are not ready for the pro league.
Right.
You know, so you need that gap. You will have the few that could transition easily, but the majority and our player pool is low. We don't have a big player pool anymore. You know, so we have to improve all those things. So
I wouldn't agree to 18 because an 18-year-old is adult in Trinidad.
It's an adult.
It's an adult.
And even if we compare it, foreign-wise as well.
17 maybe?
Right, well, this is my point.
16, from 16, you can transition from school football to professional football. That's the age we see in play. Look, Barcelona is interested in a 14-year-old from Brazil.
Yeah, 14. But what level of development would this 16-year-old have received?
That's what I'm saying. If you're working on the development of the players in the school football, you need to cap it out at 16.
Well, this is a long-term thing. I am dealing with short-term, right?
Well,
and the
short is too short. Give me middle. Give me at least medium term.
Medium term?
Yeah.
I will still
16
say
and
18.
a half.
Yeah, why? Because the school system, right? A student could leave primary school at 15 years old. That is why
primary school?
Yes. They could be in primary school up to 15 years old. So here he leaves very talented player, not into books. He leaves and he ends up in a mic. So he's gonna play for 1 year.
But he could play at a club. He could play in the Youth Pro League.
Most of them are playing with clubs. That is what I'm saying.
This is where I guess the developmental part of it comes in. So book sense is one thing. And if he plays 1 year in the intercol and he dominates, so he plays well, you can transition onto this reserve league.
Yeah, we can't be nursing 15-year-olds, Travis. We can't be nursing a 15-year-old.
When I say nursing them in primary school, that is the system. I told you guys I worked in this education, military education.
I agree, but if we are directors of football, we have to make hard, clear decisions, right? And I understand the educational deficit, but the issue is there's still another avenue for that player to catch up.
Well, bro, that is not even medium term if we really want to cap it off at 60. That is 10 years down there. Because you're allowed to be in school up until 20 years old.
Well, that rule we could end quickly.
We had at the end of the day, we had to start. I think we had to start somewhere. Are we looking just short term? Because if we put it in perspective of Iceland work it in a 10-year frame.
No, I am given short term,
medium,
when you're setting goals, you can't just set long term.
Yeah.
Because the house on fire now, I might call the fire the fire station, but I have to do something in the meantime so the house don't burn down before they reach.
Yeah.
I just think an 18-year-old should have at least 2 years professional experience by then. You know, or at least a year.
What I'm saying, Cornell,
professional experience.
Remember the school's league is only about 4 months. So these guys would be with a club But when they reach 18, they should not be playing school football anymore, even if they're in lower six and upper six.
Yeah.
So Richard, do you
Right?
agree
They
with
should be,
the
they
18
should be
cap?
going to school. Huh?
Richard, do you agree with the 18 cap?
To be honest, I already have a problem with a 15-year-old in first form. Just because you're really and truly throwing students in two different developmental stages of their lives.
Oh wait, one question. If a 15-year-old is in first form, surely the 15-year-old is not playing first form football.
No, he's not playing first form football. He's not playing under 14 football at all.
Okay.
But it's just it's a touchy one because it is under the regulations of the Ministry of Education that has been in place for a good few years. So to shift that now would take something colossal. That ain't moving.
Oh, that's what we need.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's what we need. You need
that's
change.
What we need.
You need change.
It may be what football needs, but I'm telling you, it isn't moving. I'm saying it off the bat now. We had someone that was actually like that in the school, and he played up until I think 6B. He wasn't allowed to play in 6A. So it does kind of have its balance. It's not the easiest, it's not the nicest thing to try to balance out, because it's actually really something that is structurally out of your hands, but structurally significant in terms of how you want to structure your setup. One of the things I've actually been advocating for over the better part of me returning is to have actual sport directors in schools, whereby they oversee the school's program rather than the school oversees it or the principal. It allows to free up the teachers themselves. If you need assistance, you'll get assistance, but this individual is definitely geared towards making sure that the sport programs function a certain way. And with most schools not having it, is exactly what you have, a very unstructured system that isn't necessarily built on anything that is substantial. It's not built on making sure that we have good student athletes. It's not built on making sure that those students who are taking part in sport get the assistance that they need. It's not really built on it. It's not really built on it anyway. What you have are schools that may have persons who do that, but they don't necessarily have the title to do it. I think the title of being a sport director in the schools will be something that would definitely change the way things are, because they can actually put a proper focus on sport itself within the school context. And I think it would actually add to the value of the school that is able to bring someone with that kind of credential into it, whereby they could really start working with the school and with the athletes in the school to ensure that the entire package that they're looking to get, which is a good student athlete, is a lot more cemented within the functionality of the school itself, rather than somebody coming in to build a sport, one of the teams, and then because they don't really have a true person to go to within the school to try to sort of help them out academically, that becomes a gap within itself. So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of how I've been thinking for quite some time. I think is actually something that is absolutely necessary, and it will give a lot of schools a much better hold on their actual sport programs.
So look, Germany, when they hit rock bottom, actually before they hit rock bottom, they said, you know what? This is enough. We need to remedy the situation. You guys talked about the coaching, education, etc. They did top to bottom, root and branch change. That's what we're talking about here. But if we are serious about it, we can't be concerned about egos. We can't be concerned about too much about the present structure. You have to, if you want to make fundamental changes, we have to assume that the system is no good and it has to be reworked. And
well, the system is no good. You're correct. But all right, let me give you another one. You have no hair, but you'll still scratch. You know that the first person who was in line to be the coach of a college's league team is the PE teacher.
yep.
Mhm.
Right. That is the rules in the Ministry of Education. So if
Right.
the PE teacher decide, here what, I want this job, and the principal decide, here what, no, we bringing in Travis, Mulraine, Cornell Glen, Yohance Marshall, that could end up into serious problems. He could take the school to court. So we have a lot of structural changes to do. So if we're dealing with short term, you have to go slow and build up, right? Until we can reach to where we want to go. Another major thing short term for me, I just dealing with short term. I believe the winner of the Intercol and the primary school league should be afforded a trip to one of these top tournaments when post-COVID, Dallas Cup or one of these tournaments, again to expose the players, let them see the realities of traveling and different food, different languages, different cultures, higher level football and that kind of thing. So that is it for me in terms of my recommendation.
I think the reward should be different, Travis. I think the reward should be like a sum of money goes toward developing the facilities in that school. As you said, gyms, maybe the football field, perhaps stands, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
in long term,
that is good, but that wouldn't help player development in the short term. I just
yeah, but it will help in the long term as well. And as we're looking at, the players will have the facilities in order to develop, and it will kind of push other schools to wanna do well and to wanna win, in order to get stuff done.
Not exactly. There are some principals who not like Arima North. I coach here for 3 years. The principal, no, I'm telling you, they're not interested in football. It was good and it was bad because the good part, they never interfered in the affairs until one of the teachers who worked in the school, he was also a coach at Holy Cross, and they made a whole lot of issues about one of our players not having the proper credentials to play and lost all our points. That's how the principal got involved. They never even used to watch football games, right? So I believe those facilities should be paid for from the gates that are generated from the matches.
To which nobody's attending.
No people attend. Why you say nobody not attending?
Well,
Ask Cornell how much people in Arima College gets.
Yeah, but that's naps. That's naps. That's naps, right?
Well, if the QRC and CIC invest in the program, they will have good teams.
Yeah, I think NAPS invest in their program, so they're reaping the water. They're benefiting from it.
So clearly, what we're saying is there's a little bit of resistance. We expect some resistance in the whole process, right? But obviously, we set out to talk about the SSFL, but as we clearly could see, any conversation about the SSFL has an overlap with Youth Pro League, has an overlap with national team, has an overlap with identification, all of that. And I accept that it is a central part of who we are. I just don't know how we can persist in this on this path, even with Sportsmax, even with whatever commercialization we have, if there isn't more I mean, why can't the SSFL be played more than 4 months?
Because that's the time allotted.
Yeah, but then
and
allot 8 months.
And that's why I'm saying drastic changes have to be made. Everything have to be made, else Sportsmax and companies like Sportsmax gonna get tired of putting out money and reaping no reward, and they're gonna pull out.
Where the money going, Cornell? Where that Sportsmax money going? Anybody knows?
No one knows, but that's what I'm saying. We keep electing the same old dinosaurs who has been around for ages behind the people who have drained the football dry. We keep electing the same old dinosaurs, and it's the same thing over and over. And
so as we wrap up, I want to ask this: what's needed to build a professional footballer in the SSFL?
Goddard, you haven't gone in a while. Let Goddard start.
I just went what you're talking about. All right, it definitely needs a change of philosophy, an absolute change of philosophy in football. Sport in secondary schools need to be given a lot more respect than it currently has. It has respect for those who would have gone on to national duty, whether they go off to college. Even in that regard, a lot of people they disregard persons who would have gained scholarships and whatnot. I think the trend of lack of respect towards sport is showing itself in secondary schools, and it is not. It's showing itself so badly that we really and truly got to see a bit of the product with the national team recently. We also get to see it with the women and how much respect is given to them in terms of trying to develop the game for women. It's a really, really difficult thing now to be given that kind of respect throughout the secondary schools environment. We need to essentially be strong advocates for ourselves, and in order to do it, we have to be the drivers of the change of culture. As Cornell has said, we are re-electing quite a few persons who probably should take a bit of a hiatus. But that means we have to fill that gap. And if we are going to fill that gap, we can't go in to fill that gap without knowledge that will help to change things for the better. So we have a job to do in terms of educating ourselves and putting ourselves in a position where we can really and truly help change the dynamics of the game, because it is at a standstill and it needs our assistance badly in order to get it.
Standstill or lie down still? I think it's more of a lie down still than a standstill.
Well, you could choose whichever you want. You can say walking backwards too. It is along the same lines.